Facets of learner engagement, student-staff interaction. Staff-student interaction affects learner engagement at many levels. Student relationships with staff are considered to be central to student engagement at university and in their learning in particular. Solomonides and Martin in 2008 suggest that, in general, tutors' perception of engagement is more about learning, whereas students think about engagement more in terms of feeling and their experience as part of a learning community. And various other people have written to that effect too. Kahu in 2013 observes that the higher education literature on student engagement emphasises student behaviour and teaching practice. A behavioural view of teaching results in engagement strategies that focus on what the teacher does and how the student responds. The teacher, in this sense, can set out to determine learner behaviour, for example by selecting content and designing particular exercises and activities. However, this view only goes so far. The student can respond as expected, or can respond in a surprising way because they've not really understood perhaps, or they may not respond at all. So engagement design benefits from a more holistic view of teaching and learning, and the teacher can't really assume that whatever they do will cause engagement. It can also be useful to understand the staff-student interaction perspective on engagement as a two-way dialogic relationship, or at least one that is not only about what the teacher sets out, for example, a relationship that acknowledges the teacher's role as one that influences student behaviour. Furthermore, effective engagement may come from situations in which the student or students together initiate the interaction. In this case, the teacher may enhance engagement simply by creating conditions that encourage students to be the initiators. As well as behavioural and cognitive interaction, there can be affective interactivity that changes the way the student feels. In this view, the staff-student relationship may do well to focus on sensitivities, inclusivity, looking for signs of alienation, or creating a sense of fun. Seeing teaching and learning as an emotional dynamic is another way of looking at this way of describing learner engagement. Affective engagement can, for example, stem from how the course is represented culturally, how the tutor talks about the values of the course or the associated profession, and the expectations for students to assume that culture as they learn and become the professional they aspire to be. Engagement may come from how students are supported, or how the student voice comes to change the course or its emphasis. Similarly, a student's sense of belonging may be affected by matters beyond the direct control or style of their tutor and relate to co-curricular activities or even matters at home or at work. So being sensitive to a student's life load, if you like, the sum of all the pressures a student has in their life, including university, being sensitive to this other dimension to the student's life, especially as students are having to finance their education to a greater extent. This makes sense when thinking about engagement. However, as with other aspects of curriculum design and delivery, it's worth paying attention to the pressure points that students have. It is not necessarily continuous pressure. So the teacher needs to do more than just assume that students' lives are thoroughly complicated. And they should even be looking out for life-wide successes that students have and not just the problems. Chickering and Gamson in 1987 set out the importance of frequent staff-student contact in and out of class as being the most important factor in student motivation and involvement. Inspiration for a student comes from knowing a few tutors well, thereby influencing a student's intellectual commitment and encouraging them to think about their own values and future plans. So, staff-student interaction therefore needs to be thought about holistically. Think about what students are learning, but also about how they learn and how they manage their course.